scarcity of food commodities and soaring costs, farmers are asking the federal government to do more and not plunge the country into famine. Agriculturists Rexin Tedheke called on the government to create an enabling environment for the agricultural sector to thrive.
Fertilizer, when they say they call them a Mayfield fertilizer, the one we say CBN governor give them. Have they distributed them? No. Look, this is June going to July. Farmers are already producing. Farmers are already in the feed. No support for them. Fertilizer are not there. Inputs are not there. So what are you collaborating for them to die? To go and die before you give them the whatever you're supposed to give to them? The reality is that they are slow in their approach. If you want to support farmers for this farming season, you should have done that since December last year, or you done January, February this year. If you have not done it, it means that you have lost last farming season, you have lost this farming season, you are likely losing the dry season, and you are going to lose the next one if you don't do the right thing. So sorry, the collaboration is not there. We are not seeing it. Farmers are not seeing it. Farmers have not seen it. Farmers are not likely going to see it, because the reality is that when you are a farmer, they don't sit down for Abuja, they decide what they happen for the field. It is time for those who manages the agricultural affairs of this country to leave Abuja, walk away from that comfort.
Well, Rexin Tedheke, a farmer, joins us now to look at how to address the looming foods crisis being faced by Nigeria. Thanks very much for joining us on Newsnight. What would you say are the key issues, that government is not addressing? We've talked about the state of insecurity, not allowing farmers, to really access their farms and the rest. Even when they plant, you have wanton destructions by herders and the rest. But what's government not doing right?
Primarily, it's in the area of finance. Government is not financing agriculture the way it should be financed.
Even with the Bank of Agriculture there?
They have been constituting board like forever. So when are they going to take off? And the challenge is always the fact that government is looking at agriculture as a profit project. Agriculture is a national security issue. It is not business for government, it's business for the private sector, but a support system for government. And so if you're not funding agriculture correctly, you can't expect food security. And the realities are simple. If the most capitalist economy in the world does $50 billion as subsidy to farmers, that's the United States. And Egypt is doing about 4.5 trillion every year. And Thailand, that will go and get rice from, is doing about 3.5 trillion a year to support farmers. What have you done? Both the federal and the state government have done absolutely nothing when it comes to putting their money where their mouth is.
We shouldn't talk about local government.
No, local government, they are out of the question, because that is actually the key source of agricultural financing.
Is it the business of the federal government to talk about farming? You've talked about the subnational government and the rest. Why are they not doing it?
The question is, we're operating a federal system of government, a presidential system of government, where the federal government takes about 52% of all in fair allocation, right? So what are you doing with it if you cannot give your people food to eat? So when we say state, I understand that state need to play a role, but where is the leadership? The Federal Ministry of Agriculture is supposed to create leadership. You're supposed to give directives. Why was it that the Anchor Borers program was as successful as it was? Even though they had its challenges. It is because the federal government took the initiative to say, look, we want our people to eat food. And so with the federal government taking the initiative, the state followed. And that's why Kebbi did as wonderful as they did with regards to rice, because the federal government actually played a role. This federal government is not playing any role when it comes to food security. They're not playing any role when it comes to agricultural financing. They're not playing any role when it comes to input financing. So the reality is the fertilizer in July are not with farmers. When are they going to have access to that fertilizer? So it is lack of financing, it is lack of process understanding, it is lack of commitment to the ideology that, look, we're an agrarian country.
So the Federal Minister of Agriculture seems non-existent.
It's actually non-existent, because if you look at what they have done, the question it asks is that, what have you done? In other words, there is nothing that we can hold on to and say, we are taking this bold step. Look, when they came in, one of the things we spoke about was the agricultural cooperatives, right? The wall-of-work cooperatives, the Rugas, the farm estates, and across the country. If you want to make agriculture work, you need to focus on working with what is already existing and what has impact. That was the essence of the prime anchor. A prime anchor is people hold on to someone who has the capacity, who has the understanding, who has the ability to be able to make things work. But when there is no prime anchor, what you're doing is that you're doing political palliatives or political intervention. What will happen with political intervention is people who need these resources to actually produce food will not get it. Politicians will have access to it, and then you have portfolio farmers who only operate from Abuja, which is why I said it is time. Why is the Minister of Agric stationed in Abuja? Every zone of this country should have a representative of the Ministry of Agric. If you want to have 6 ministers across all the zones, for goodness sake, have them. People who are close to the people, close to the resources, and actually able to understand how to make farming work. Because the reality is that we are hungry. Because we are not serious, because we are not active, because we are not engaging. Holland is about 30 million people sitting on a place not just a little above, bigger than Lagos, and they're doing 100 billion euro every year from agriculture. How much are you doing? Your cattle industry alone is enough to take care of your meat need and also for export. What of cassava? We're one of the largest producers of cassava in the world. We should be doing $10 billion a year from cassava. But when you sit in the comfort of Abuja, you don't understand what's happening in the villages. You are not focused on how you can finance people. How many Nigerians can actually make money at 10% interest rate? When today, you are raising rate to about 30%. And so you are actually knocking off the entire farming infrastructure, farming communities, rural commercial farmers as well as smallholder farmers out of the equation totally. So the funding is not there, the capacity is not there, and then you want the farmers to produce, and you blame them for lack of productivity. What have you done to give them that capacity? What are the finances you're putting on the table to give them that capacity? The rates in Nigeria cannot sustain any farm project. That's why you see farms are dying left, right, and center. Because the average commercial farmer in the West or Deep South, China, Thailand, the access to loan is about 5%. So even before we get out of the gate, the typical Nigerian farmer is already at a disadvantage. Olam from Singapore, how much do they bring capital inflow? Comes in at less than 5%. 10, 20 years. In Nigeria, the commercial farmer does not get interest at CBA gave us at 9% the last time. And now, even if it's going to come, it's not going to be less than 50%. And you say you want to produce food, the finances is not there. The infrastructure, basic rural infrastructure are not there. So when we talk about the state government doing the job, I always ask the question, what has the federal government done? Then
what has the state government done too with capacity?
Let me give you an example of my state, Nasarawa State.
Okay, you've adopted Nasarawa State. Yes. Because I know you are from Delta State. You have a thriving farm there. Yes,
so I've adopted Nasarawa State.
Okay.
I was with the governor last week, and the governor said, look, we need you to come in. We are opening a 10,000 hectares project in Obi, and then we are inviting the governor to be a part of Agbatokin, a blockchain funding structure to support rural agriculture in Nigeria. And he said, we need you to come to Obi. And then what you have done in Igati, it is time to replicate it in Obi so that we can have more of such projects all over Nasarawa State. That's exactly what we are saying. You see, if government is failing...
It's going to be government funded.
No, government cannot fund... the nature of capital you need, yes, it's only government that can fund it, but government alone cannot do it. So what you need is to tap into alternative sources of finance that is able to make it easier for government to make commitment while you bring in other sources to also back up that funding structure. Because agriculture is capital intensive. Why do you think our parents did not make money from agric? Why do you think our great-grandparents did not become rich from agriculture?
But they fed us. We were fed.
They fed us.
We were fed.
But they were never really comfortable.
With even the granite pyramids, we're comfortable.
What
comfortability.
I mean is
the African timber and plywood, for example, 300 miles radius, you get all the timbers and the rest, either ferried by road or by the river Ethiopia. You had... excuse me.
Yes.
You had the rubber industry, for example, the Nigerian Rubber Research Institute in Iyamo or so in Benin. And
absolutely.
Of course, that created, primary factories like Michelin, Dunlop, and the rest who were using rubber for tires and other, plastic industries.
I am happy you're coming from that angle.
Yeah.
That was the state creating wealth. It wasn't wealth for the individual smallholder farmers. They were comfortable, but they were not rich.
That is where I'm coming from. The smallholder farmers were there. They had rubber tappers
they were not rich.
Who had little rubber plantations.
Of course,
and
my dad, Professor Musi Tedheke, came from there. So they were not rich. What we are saying is that is the model we need to go back to, where the farmers are comfortable, not rich, but more importantly, the state is playing the role they need to play with the federal government coming to play. We always talk about our cooperatives. Why do we always bring Awolowo into this conversation when we had them? Why did Buhari go back to the Awolowo cooperatives? It is because Awolowo understood the concept of investing massively into agriculture so that the communities and the rural communities around them can become productive ecosystem where if you want rubber, you have access to rubber. If you want plantain, you have access to plantain. If you want palm oil, you have access to palm oil. If you want groundnut, you want cotton. But once the 80s, when Buhari came up with this concept of importation, it's just what happened in crude oil. It's already beginning to happen in agriculture. If you import your way to have temporary comfort when it comes to agricultural productivity, what happens in the long run? What happens to the economy you're importing from? You think they are going to allow you to continue to produce when they know that they can sell to you? So every time you talk about importation as a source of short-term solution, you're actually killing your own local productivity, killing your own local farmers, making sure that right now the farmers don't have purchasing power. Why? Because you have killed their purchasing power with your policies. The policies of the government kill the purchasing power of the rural farmer. Now the policy of the government is also killing the farmer with the capacity to produce. So the farmer is at a disadvantage. Give them the right resources, give them the right finances, give them the capacity to farm, and then you will not complain of food insecurity.
Thank you, Retsi. No better place for you to drop it there. But I'm not going to be discouraged in becoming, in going into animal husbandry. Retsi Tedheke is a big-time farmer, not a small farmer. Thanks for coming to shed more light on, Nigerian government financing agriculture in the country.